Hey everyone, welcome to Comms First. We've got another great session for you. We are about to review flavors of direct routing. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Callum Hardy, who is the presenter for today's session. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I am Callum Hardy from Exactive. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I am currently Head of Solutions and Pre-Sales here at Exactive. Exactive, we're the UK's first and oldest Microsoft UC partner, so I have the privilege of working with Microsoft UC solutions all the way back, starting with OCS and all the way through to Teams as we see it today. The purpose of today's slides is to talk about what types of direct routing and models of direct routing that you can get. Contrary to the common belief, direct routing isn't just a commodity service that can be turned on and nothing much else. It's actually a really flexible solution and can work for a lot of scenarios if it's done correctly. As you can see with the list of all the sponsors, it's just an incredible event. So all I will say is mirror exactly what's said at the top there, which is a massive thank you to all the sponsors and the people who are actually making it happen. So Mark, Brandy and Martin and all the people who are helping producing the events today. It's just a massive team and collaborative effort. So first things first, let's strip it right back. What is direct routing, I suppose, is the main question of today. And we'll try and keep that the main focus and how that works with the solutions that we're going to speak about going forward. So, simply put, direct routing connects Microsoft Teams to the public switch telephony network, the PSTN. These are Microsoft certified session border controllers. It allows businesses to leverage Microsoft Teams to make and receive external calls without requiring Microsoft call plan licenses or any on-premise piece of equipment depending on what service type is chosen. On that basis, we'll look at that as the goal and how it can be met. So this is the end goal, is allowing Teams to reach the PSTN, always being at the forefront of what we want to do. Continuing on from this, we're going to look at what kind of scenarios we can have to utilise direct routing from the most basic to the most complex. We'll start looking from the beginning at its most simplest form, which is DRaaS, direct routing as a service. So like most things as a service, you'll probably consume it on a per something basis, so per user, per channel, per minute, but most likely it's going to be per user per month. Everything in the background is taken care of and you just consume the service. So what are the benefits of consuming direct routing as a service? So it's a very quick setup. It's a centralized service. So everything is already there in the background. The skeleton's there, the bones are there. You don't really need to do much. So you can almost set up direct routing as a service within a day for your customer or for your end organisation. It's a very simple, straightforward process. And that's because, again, it's automated. Everything is already there. It's just entering the credentials and specific details that you need to match your organisation, and you can spin it up super quick, super easy. But that helps and adds to the scalability of it. So if your organisation is completely up and running, you're happy with direct routing, but you want to add another 10, 50, 100, even 1,000 users, say for example that you take over an organisation. Again, it's a simple add, move and change, and which makes it scalable. All you're doing is adding DDIs or adding users to your direct routing service, and you'll just consume more DDIs or consume more users. It's a very easy process to do. Consuming direct routing as a service is good in two ways, because you can have two different options with your numbers. You can essentially procure brand new numbers. So if you wanted to run it side by side with your existing PBX, you have the absolute flexibility to do so. So if they still wanted to keep your on-premise solution, you can do that, and you wanted to run direct routing side by side, you can absolutely do that and just procure new numbers and give your users new numbers for your new Microsoft telephony system. Absolutely possible. Or you can port your existing numbers in from wherever it may be, so your ISDN or SIP provider already, and port them into your direct routing provider. The choice is up to yourself. You can do that. Those options are the two most common. It's absolutely possible for both. All depends on what your organisation need is and how predominantly you need to keep your DDIs, or if you're happy to get new ones, because you need to put the numbers in. It's up to yourself. And probably the main benefit of consuming direct routing as a service is there's no on-premise responsibility. Now, what do I mean by that? So, for example, if you had a typical on-premise Skype for Business estate, for argument's sake, you'd have to be responsible for Windows updates, Skype for Business cumulative updates, internal cert renewals, public cert renewals, and that's just on the servers. You also got server CALs to think about, and server licensing to think about, and the maintenance of the actual hosts that they sit on. When you're SBCs, you've got your firmware to update and your certificates to update. When you configure or consume direct routing as a service, there's none of that. So if it's a manual failover for disaster recovery type of scenario, everything is taken care of behind the scenes. You don't need to worry about anything that I've just said. You just consume it as a service. None of the maintenance or none of the kit is concerned about of yourself. It's all up to the direct routing provider. It's not your concern. You just pay your per minute or per user bundle, and that's how it's done. It's a really straightforward process as far as the end user is concerned. However, this only works if your environment fits and you can consume direct routing in this way. So if your estate and your migration approach allows, that's fine. But what if you have a more complex need? So if you need more flexibility, what can you do? So for example, if you want to sweat out a SIP contract, so you may have just signed up to a 36-month SIP contract, and 6 months down the line, the business says to you, look, we really want to start looking at direct routing as a service. What can we do here? Or direct routing, what can we do here? You're in a bit of an awkward situation because you can't go back and cancel the SIP contract because you've just procured that. So what can you do there? You, again, very similarly, you may have just renewed your cloud PBX. So you may want to have some form of interop between your cloud PBX and Teams. So what kind of thing can you do there? Compliance reasons. So for example, you may not be allowed to consume a centralized service. You may have to have a specific piece of kit within your specific cloud data centers. So how would that work in your environment if this was a need? You may have older analog devices that you have within your environment. So you may have older pieces of kit and you may still want to use them as handsets. How would that look like? And again, same with SIP devices. You may be using universal SIP devices just now and you want to register them somewhere. How would you be able to do that? So your answer would be a dedicated cloud-hosted SBC. So instead of consuming something that's centralized, you would just consume something within your tenancy and in your data center that's up in the cloud. So it'll be your AWS or Azure instance. And that's your easy, quick win there. It would still be proactively monitored, it would still be proactively managed and maintained. It just sits not in our AWS instance, it would sit in your AWS or Azure instance. And that's how that would work. So to swell your SIP contract, an easy win, you would connect your SIP trunk then directly to this SBC. And in the model, we call it bring your own SIP. So that method ticks the box. You can use your SIP trunk with direct routing and all those boxes are ticked. For the cloud PBX integration, again, this method allows you to create a SIP trunk between your cloud PBX to allow shortcode dialing. For example, we'll have a slide later on that will show you how the PBX integration looks with direct routing. But this, again, box can be ticked. All you're doing is creating a SIP trunk like you would if it was an on-premise thing, and you'd create it between the SIP trunk, between the SBC and your cloud PBX, and they're able to talk that way depending on the translation rules. So it's a really, really good, simple win. For compliance reasons, again, it's not a tick. You're not consuming a centralized service, it's in your instance specifically. So again, you've met that need. And again, your analog devices can now register to that SBC because you would use something like a Grandstream, for example, and you'd register them up to the cloud that way. So it's another really good win. Same with SIP devices. Because you have your own specific SBC here, you can register your SIP devices directly to the SBC. Everything that you need for your flexibility is there. So it's a really, really good, quick win. And that's the offer that we would say would be good if you needed those specific flexible solutions. However, what if you still needed more flexibility? So if you had an on-premise PBX, so not everybody has a cloud-hosted PBX. You may have an on-premise PBX, an older one, and it might not support NAT traversal. And again, for regulatory reasons, easy for me to say, you may not be able to have SBCs cloud-hosted at all. So you may not be allowed to utilize either AWS or Azure. What would you do there? Or your SIP trunks terminate on-premise, so you actually have physical SIP trunks in your premises. What would you do? So very similar to before, it's a managed on-premise SBC. So all you're doing is you're just changing the location of where the SBC specifically is. You're bringing it down from the cloud and putting it in your data centers. So again, instead of connecting a SIP trunk between a cloud-based SBC and a cloud-based PBX, all you're doing is creating a SIP trunk between the on-premise PBX and an on-premise SBC. Again, it's still proactively monitored and managed and maintained. All of that is done. You're still consuming direct routing, but you're still getting the need that you specifically has as an organisation of interop between the two, which is great. You've ticked the box for regulatory reasons because it's not cloud hosted and it's in your data center, so that's a win. And you can point your SIP trunks to it because again, it's in your data center. So that would be a great resolution for what you're looking for if you need that level of flexibility. So here are the call flows that I was talking about earlier. So a simple call flow would be from Teams to your PBX. So the Teams user would call 4100 and the called user exists on the PBX. So the call is normalized to full E164 format and the calling number is always going to be still from E164 format. That's fine. So Teams will take it and it will send it to the gateway that's assigned within Teams, which we'll talk about later on in a later slide. So the call is sent to the virtual SBC in the following format. So the full E164 call number and the full E164 calling number. Now at this point, depending on the routing rules on the audio codes, there may be a need within your business during the setup of direct routing to start utilising SIP. So as you can see over here, your PBX still utilises ISDN trunks. Now that's fine, you can still utilise ISDN using direct routing, but your business may want to prove the methodology of SIP. So you could have that SIP trunk out here on this SBC, completely possible. So it's optional. So you may have a rule here that for direct routing, you want to use a new SIP trunk, but the rule says that this user is defined on the PBX, so don't send it out to the SIP trunk. So if you look at step number 3, the audio codes VSBC will identify the user as on the PBX and route it to the PBX trunk. And this is where the magic happens. So the call number is changed to the following format of 4100, and the calling number is changed from 4501. So that's when you start taking the E164 format and you start changing it to speak the PBX language. So the PBX starts understanding what has just came from Teams. So the call is sent from the PBX trunk to the PBX registrar. No formatting changes there, just a straightforward call through. The PBX registrar will say specifically that this is an actual registered device. I own it. Don't send it out to the ISDN. Please send it to the PBX handset. And the reason being, 4100 is the extension of 4100 of this PBX handset. So call is routed to the PBX user. The calling number will be from the following format of 4501, like you can see here. So all you're doing is you're stripping the +44 1372 47 and you're leaving that 4-digit prefix, and that's how you start getting the extension dialing to work. And again, very similar from PBX to Teams. So the PBX user will start dialing again 4-digit extensions. So the PBX user calls the extension of 4501. The called user exists on Teams, that's perfect. and the calling number is 4100 because that's the extension assigned to the handset. The registrar will make its own decisions whether it should go out this ISDN trunk here. However, it understands that it shouldn't go out the ISDN trunk and it should continue its journey. So the call hits the PBX registrar and is routed to the PBX gateway. And then from that, the routing will say the call should go to the virtual SBC further down the line. So further down the line, again, the call is 4501, calling is 4100. And again, at the virtual SBC we put in place, this is where the magic happens. So we're taking the 4-digit dial from the PBX and start transforming it to what Teams starts to understand, which is full E164 format. So the call number is changed to the following format. So again, it's +44 and then E164, and the calling number is changed to +44 E164. Now, as you can see, the DDI here absolutely matches that because of the on-prem line URI parameter within Teams. So the call is routed to the Teams user. The on-prem line URI parameter of the account will be used to route the call. So that's the overall high-level call flow of how PBX integrations work with direct routing. And it's in the virtual SBC that the magic essentially happens. It's where you start transforming the calls from speaking one kind of short code dialing, so 4100, and translating that over the full E164 format. So that's where the clever parts happen. However, so there's one flavour of direct routing left that we have not spoke about, and that's an on-premise direct routing solution that uses the existing estate, and that's where the next slide comes in. So if you already have Microsoft UC, you're probably well on your path to Microsoft Teams because you're most likely already going to have certified session border controllers, so there's no need for any new kit. And because of you're using Skype for Business, there's already inbuilt tools to help the migration to Teams a lot simpler. So how would it look and what do I need to do? So to enable Skype for Business in 3 easy steps, you need to do the 3 above here. So if you have Exchange Online or any other Office 365 app, Hybrid AV will almost already be in place using probably Azure AD Connect most likely. It's a straightforward setup. And that's just to enable your users to sync from on-premise to online. So to have your user accounts online, that's what the first part is. Skype for Business will need to be placed in hybrid mode. So in essence, you're creating a connection between Skype for Business and Office 365 or Teams to make a nice, seamless migration for your users. So you still have your voice, you're basically transforming your voice elements there. So you're choosing where your voice elements of your users go. So that's an important part. And then your last part is enabling your SBCs for direct routing. So originally, when you set up your Skype for Business estate, you would have had to register your SBCs to your topology in Skype for Business. It's actually very similar with Teams. Whether it be direct routing or your own SBCs, there will be a gateway registered to your Office 365 tenancy. So you also need to enable a connection between your SBC and Office 365, and that's essentially where you register your SBCs to Teams in the cloud. Again, very similar to your Skype for Business estate. And at a very simple high level, this is what it looks like. There's not much needed. All you need is a front-end server to host your users, a Skype for Business Edge server to have the connection with Teams and Office 365, and then a route out to your SBCs. Again, looking at the SBC, all it needs is just a connection direct routing-wise to Office 365 and Teams, and then a route out to the PSTN. You could have a really simple, small Skype for Business setup, it still works with direct routing. There's not much needed as far as that's concerned. And all you need to do after this, once the state looks very similar to the above, is make sure the users are licensed appropriately. So give them a phone system license. So if you have an E1 or E3 SKU, you need to add the additional license of Microsoft 365 phone system, whereas you have E5, it's encompassed in there. And then what you need to do is, this may actually sound familiar, is you need to set up your PSTN usages, your voice routes, your voice routing policy instead of your voice policy, and your dial plans. Probably sounds familiar. Once that's done and you've got them set up very similar and almost mimicked to what's on premise, then you want to set your user to Teams only mode. It's a very easy script to do, but the reason you want your user in Teams only mode is because the call will still be routed to Skype for Business if the user is not in Teams only mode. So the call will go through all the call logic, and if the user isn't in Teams only mode, the call will be sent to Skype for Business first and not utilise direct routing. So that's one of the reasons why you would want to do that. And then lastly, not everybody has Skype for Business. You've got to think about Link as well. So what about Link? So it's quite simple. It would actually just build you the exact same diagram as you had before. And the reason for that is you need a Skype for Business Edge server for communication to Office 365. You can't pair a Link front end with a Skype Edge. So I would create you the smallest, all-encompassing Skype for Business environment and then decommission it once the job's done. It would be in the exact same topology with Link. It would just sit side by side. And that's how it would look. It'd look exactly the same as it did before. There'd be absolutely no difference. It would be the smallest Skype for Business estate that I could build you. So again, as I mentioned, you just need a small front end server just to host your users. So you'd move them from the Link pool to the front end pool. That would then allow them to have the connection to the Office 365 via that paired Edge server with the front end pool. It's it's just for your federation route, essentially, to Office 365. It's all it's there for. Once all your users are up there and in Office 365, you just decommission the Skype for Business estate and Link estate and keep your SBC for the direct routing piece. Then once you're up there, if you wanted to consume direct routing as a service and you didn't want to have anything at all in your data center, you would just get rid of the SBC, port your numbers from your SIP trunk provider to a direct routing provider. It's a very seamless, easy migration to do. But it gives you the biggest flexibility because you're already utilising a Microsoft UC estate. So to summarise, direct routing for all. There is very rarely a circumstance where a fit of direct routing wouldn't work for your organisation. I've mentioned a lot of different challenges that some businesses have there, but there is always going to be a solution for yourself depending on where you are. It's not just a turnkey solution. There's a lot of things that can be done and there's a lot of integration that can happen with direct routing for it to work with yourselves. On that note, I would invite you to join me in the breakout rooms for any questions that you have for myself. And we can happily discuss and go through them and chat a bit more about maybe what your business thinks or needs from direct routing if it's not a simple, straightforward solution. Thanks for joining today. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Callum. And in the Q&A, you can find the announcement that has the link to the breakout room where Callum is headed for Q&A. So feel free to join him there. Thank you very much for attending today. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your time at Comms First. Bye-bye.